taking care of our lives.
The subject of saving energy wouldn't be complete if we neglected to examine one of the most important aspects of life quality to many Americans, and that means taking a look at personal transportation. Whether it was mopeds, electric or hydrogen cars, we looked at what was happening in man's pursuit to reduce our fuel consumption and thus our energy dependence. And we even took lessons from one individual who showed us step by step how to convert our gasoline engines so that they would run on alcohol, a fuel that some people were now brewing to drive, not to drink.
American vehicles that make about 100 different kinds of carburetors, but they all have a few things in common. They all have a float chamber somewhere on them, and the float chamber always comes apart, usually with Phillips head screws. In the bottom of the float chamber somewhere, immersed in the gasoline, or in the alcohol, depending on what you're running, is what's called a main jet. The jets meter the amount of fuel that's going in to be mixed with the air to burn in the engine. So for alcohol, what you want is a metering of about 8 to 1. 8 parts air to 1 part alcohol.
As opposed to what for gas?
Gasoline is about 14 to 1. 14 parts air to 1 part gas. So what you have to do is you have to make your jets, or jet, bigger. Now this particular motor is a 6-cylinder International Harvester with what's called a 1-barrel Holley carburetor. 1 barrel means that it has 1 throat where the air and fuel mix. Some carburetors have 1 barrel, some have 2, and some have 4. And so the multi-barrel carburetors, all the barrels have to be adjusted for alcohol. Now this is called the float chamber in here. This maintains a constant level of fuel inside the carburetor, no matter what the speed of the engine. So somewhere in the bottom of the float chamber, there will be a jet. And in fact, in this carburetor, it's right under the float. Most jets in American cars, most main jets, are removable. So you just unscrew the jet, and this little thing is the jet. This is the main jet.
Okay.
Okay. Main jet has a hole down the center of it. The hole is a certain diameter, depending on how much fuel you want to let in to the quantity of air that's going through. The jets are stamped with a number on the side or on the top. The number is the size of the hole. So you go to your local auto parts store and you buy another jet, it costs about 50 cents, that is roughly 40% bigger than the number that's stamped on the jet. So in other words, if you start off with, this one started off with a 67, so figure half again as much, somewhere up around a 90 is what you want. And the jets are cheap enough so that you can buy a few all around the correct number and put in the right one. So I have some jets here. So I started with a 67, I'm going to use an 85.
Okay.
It's mostly a trial and error, although there is a way to actually figure it out.
Okay, Mike, while you're putting that back in, if a person isn't very handy with his hands or knows nothing about carburetors, is it something they can go to their local mechanic and have him do?
Oh, for sure. If you tell a mechanic that you want to rejet your carburetor for alcohol, he may ask you how you do it. In terms of what size jet do I put in, he may not be familiar with alcohol as a fuel, but for sure, if you tell him what size jet to put in, he can put it in.
Hey, Mike, what about the long-range implications on an engine? If it runs on alcohol for a period of a year or two, will it endanger the engine at all since it was designed for gasoline? Or?
I haven't heard of any problems. Of course, you always hear rumors. So I can tell you a few of the rumors while I'm putting the air cleaner back on. One of the rumors is that there are plastic parts which alcohol will dissolve. I've never found any myself, but it is theoretically possible that there would be some plastic that alcohol would attack. Anything that would fall into that category could be replaced with a metal part. And so what you would do is take the plastic part out, put it in some alcohol, and let it sit there for a while, maybe even heat it up.
See what happens.
See what happens.
What about the operating temperatures of alcohol combustion as opposed to gas? Is it hotter?
No,
warmer?
it's colder.
It's colder.
Yeah. It burns colder, and also you mix some water in with your fuel, with the alcohol. That's desirable to run about 10% water.
You do that outside the tank or inside the tank?
Well, either way, but it's easier to do it outside the tank because then you know what you've got.
And what about early morning startups? Do you have to use put a little gasoline in the carburetor to start it up?
It depends on the temperature of the engine. Now, I've been running a school bus on alcohol, and above about 50 degrees, there's no problem. Below 50 degrees, it helps to prime it with ether or gasoline.
Personal transportation is getting quite expensive these days, with the cost of cars climbing dramatically, and the cost of fuel is almost as prohibitive. So much so that some Americans simply cannot afford to drive. It just costs too much. As in everything these days, we simply don't seem to have enough money to make ends meet. And so we decided to take a long, hard look at money. And some of the people we talked to had alternatives to the traditional ways of conserving their wealth, a method identified by some as the hard money approach. Basically, this meant investing in items such as gold and silver, and they felt that they had good reasons for taking this approach. It was their way of fighting the ravages of inflation. Jesse Cornish, an investment advisor who specializes in capital preservation and is with Investment Rarities in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
The most popular gold coin on earth is the South African Kruger Rand. Minted by the Chamber of Mines in South Africa, contains 1 exact ounce of pure gold plus 9/100ths of an ounce of a copper alloy that makes it hard so you can throw it around the room. The Canadian maple leaf, beautiful coin, 24-karat pure gold, but no alloy, a little softer. You got to be a little careful with it. And there are the Mexican coins. The Mexican 50 peso contains 1 1/5 ounces of pure gold. The Austrian and Hungarian 100 corona, 0.9802 of gold. Just a breath under 1 ounce. All of these coins, for capital preservation purposes, are identical because gold has no nationality. And as long as you buy it in bullion and buy the gold, the premiums on these coins would run about between 6 and 7% over the spot price of gold on any given day.
Don Casey is the owner of the Texas Mint in Garland, Texas, which specializes in reclaiming and selling silver bullion.
There's various ways of investing in gold. You can buy gold jewelry, you can buy Kruger Rands or other 1 ounce gold coins. We're introducing a 1 ounce gold coin in a few months at the Texas Mint. Of course, Kruger Rand has the 1/10 and 1/4 and 1/2, so you can get into holding gold at a small level, but I would balance it out at least 50-50, something of that nature. 50% of your dollar value in gold and about 50% of your dollar value in silver. People need to realize that silver is going to be more spendable. More readily, they can accumulate more ounces, considerably more ounces. The ratio now is 37-to-1, so you can, if you bought 100 ounces of gold, you would own, 37 times as much silver.
Casey makes a case for silver, one reason being that it is more affordable. Jesse Cornish looks at silver, junk silver especially, as a vehicle tailored for a very specific purpose.
You should look at the dimes, quarters, and half dollars, circulated silver coins, junk silver we call it, as your little nest egg in the event you need to do trading and we had a complete currency collapse and we're down, a depression, bad. That's how you should look at that. And you should have some. We call it your survival coins. Then you should, if you can, have some gold, Kruger Rands, to use to carry you over. I look at gold and numismatic coins as sort of a space vehicle. If you had a lot of high-powered, expensive numismatic coins right in the middle of this so-called depression, you'd never get the premium back out of them. They wouldn't be good. So you need those to carry you to the other side to buy some of the new money when this currency reform comes. Because if you go into it with paper, you'll come out broke.
Conserving your assets is a very important part of the survival process in this fast-paced, ever-changing world of ours. But there is more to life than money or making money. Equally important to a lot of Americans in determining their life quality is how they go about making their money. The process becomes for them more important than the accumulation of money or material goods. One example